In this movie, I want to share with you a couple of tricks to assigning patterns to both fills and strokes here inside the appearance panel so that everything aligns perfectly. I'll go ahead and switch over to my document in progress here. And the first thing I'm going to do is click on the background rectangle. And you want to make sure you're pretty far away from the text, because if you click anywhere near it, you're going to select that text instead. So go ahead and select the background rectangle. And now what we want to do is add a pattern in front of it by creating a new fill, which you can do by clicking on the Add New Fill icon down here in the bottom left corner of the appearance panel, or you have that keyboard shortcut of Control/ here on the PC or Command/ on the Mac. Now go ahead and click on the color swatch for the new fill. And notice that we have just one pattern included along with the default RGB set, and it's called Jive. But the great thing about it is it's a translucent pattern that works in combination with our other fills. You can see that this is a classic example of why you would want to assign two fills to the same object. All right, but this isn't the one I want. So I'll go ahead and click on this top fill swatch again. Then I'll click on the libraries icon in the bottom left corner of this pop-up panel. I'll choose patterns, then I'll choose decorative, and I'll choose this guy right there, Vonster patterns. And I've gone ahead and increased the size of my thumbnails by clicking on this little flyout menu icon and choosing medium thumbnails, which is available right here. But you can do as you like. The only thing we need is this guy right there, Coronation. I'll just go ahead and double click on it in order to add it to the list of swatches included with my active document. And then I'll go ahead and close this floating panel. And again, this pattern includes transparency so that we can see the purple fill in the background. All right, now we need to assign this pattern to the text. So if you're working along with me, go ahead and select the text by clicking on it. And then we need to keep this white fill because otherwise we're going to reveal some cracks in the background. Notice these little slices and the P and the E and the D, they're all over the place. We don't want those to be visible. So keep that white fill and then go ahead and create a new fill. I'll do so this time just by pressing Control/ or Command/ on the Mac. And then I'll change this new fill to Coronation once again in order to produce this effect here. Now, the obvious problem is that the pattern is not expanding into the white stroke. And so I'll go ahead and click on the white stroke to select it. And that's just identifying where we want to put the new stroke. And so I'll create that stroke by clicking on the Add New Stroke icon in the bottom left corner of the panel, or you have that keyboard shortcut of Control-Alt/ or Command-Alt/ on the Mac. All right, now I'll go ahead and click on this stroke swatch and change it to Coronation, and you can see everything's working beautifully. But here's the problem. Right now, if you look at the pattern, it is continuous throughout all the artwork. But if I were to move this text to a different location, you can see that the pattern is now out of register. Now, this may or may not happen if you're working along with me, but if it does, here's the culprit. I'll click on the word transform up here in the control panel. Then I'll click on the flyout menu icon and notice that transform both is turned on. I want it to be set to transform object only. So I'll go ahead and choose that option. And then I'll press the Enter key or the Return key on the Mac to hide that pop-up panel. I'll press Control-Z or Command-Z on the Mac to undo that move. And now notice if I move the text to a different location, it doesn't matter. The pattern does not move along with it. All right, I'll go ahead and press Control-Z or Command-Z on the Mac to undo that move. And now let's say I want to integrate the pattern into this black edge. I'll go ahead and click on the black edge to select it. And this time, instead of adding a new stroke, which would not include the dynamic effects, that would be a bad thing. Instead, I'll click on a little page icon in order to duplicate the existing stroke. And now I'll change the color from black to Coronation once again. Now, of course, that's pretty over the top, so I'm going to take things down a notch by clicking on the word opacity right here. Do you see that? And that's going to bring up a little transparency panel, at which point I'll reduce the opacity value to 20% and press the Enter key or the Return key on the Mac in order to invoke that change. Now, it's easy to work quickly inside of Illustrator and not notice your mistakes, but it's good every once in a while to take a close look at your artwork. And notice if I zoom in here by Control Spacebar or Command Spacebar clicking, you can see that things are not lining up properly, specifically inside this edge. And that is a function of this transform effect. So I'll go ahead and click on it and notice that we are moving this edge 5 points to the right and 5 points down. And that's happening not only to the object itself, meaning the stroke in this case, but also to the pattern. Go ahead and turn that checkbox off, and then turn on the preview checkbox, and notice everything lines up the way that it should. At which point I'll go ahead and click OK to accept that change. And now I'll press Control-0 or Command-0 on the Mac in order to zoom out. And what is so great about this effect, even though it's a little bit gaudy, it's kind of over the top, it's totally editable. So if I were to switch to the Type tool, which I can get by pressing the T key, and I were to go ahead and drag over a couple of letters here and change them to something completely unexpected, you'll see that everything about this artwork updates entirely dynamically, just as we've come to expect from this very powerful application. And that's how you use the Appearance panel to assign repeating patterns to both fills and strokes so that they align flawlessly here inside Illustrator.